Hello everyone and welcome back to Black Dahlia. Last time we talked to a higher up in society, met an FBI agent, and got the FBI blacklist from Sullivan to hopefully help us on our way. But we have another lead in order to look at, which is going to be from Detective Marillo. Let's see what his side of this complaint from our messenger, and what he has to say about it.
Come in.
Excuse me, Detective Marillo? I'm Jim Pearson. I'm from the COI. I'm here about Mr. Finster's complaint.
A what? This had better be good, kid. I'm up to my neck in murders.
Yeah, getting more abbreviations, even, tiny pisses me off a little bit too. Especially when you don't really know it and you just get more and more of them every time you go.
You were the detective that handled Mr. Finster's complaint?
Finster? Oh yeah, Finster. I remember him now. Listen, kid. If I had a nickel for every so-called Nazi spy in this city, I would be a very rich man.
So you don't think his complaint was legitimate?
Ever since you secret agent types start stirring people up about Nazi spies, every Tom, Dick, and Harry with a beef about his neighbors has been into my office. You care to take a guess how many of them panned out?
Well, what did your investigation reveal? Was there anything to the invitation? You did investigate this, didn't you?
Now listen, Sonny! There's a butcher on the loose in my city! I didn't have time! Hey, isn't that sort of thing your job now? I don't have time to babysit another Fed.
Detective, I understand you must be very busy right now.
You don't understand nothing! Every day, it seems, we find another body or a part of a body. We don't have enough good leads and we don't have enough men to cover this case, and on top of that, I got some horse's ass from the Federal Bureau of Investigation looking over my shoulder trying to tell me how to do my job.
I'm sorry to have bothered you, Detective. I'll be on my way.
This case is gonna be the death of me yet. For what it's worth, kid, Finster had a look at the mugshot books. He said he spotted the Joe what handed him that screwy invitation. I think he even marked the books and everything. You can have a look through them if you think it'll help.
Thank you, Detective.
Yes, it's certainly an interesting conflict of priorities when it comes to this area. World War II and dealing with the Germans? Or specifically looking at a serial killer, really. But let's take a look, because if we remember Finster, he actually did point out in this book what he actually looked like. And there was also stationery that he put in here, which we are very happy to take. There are a lot of different faces here, a lot of them kind of stray dead ends and red herrings really just kind of look at it. Especially the no profile picture ones versus only having one. But there really is, in terms of the bushy face, is really all we can go on based on, and instead of just actual hair color. The one that really stands out of all of them, especially with its information, is this one, Lewis Fisher, who has several slight aliases: fielder, fielding, theft, racketeering. That kind of fits in with the throwing around pamphlets everywhere for this brotherhood. Writing bad checks. Definitely has that beard and that kind of whole profile that Finster was talking about. So this is a name that we should certainly write down, something that we should remember for a little bit later. Now, I don't want to leave on such a sour note.
Are you any closer to catching the torso killer?
That sick son of a bitch has been too clever.
How's that?
Well, for starters, he's not leaving enough behind for us to identify. Our best guess is he's cutting up bums and whores, people nobody'd miss. Takes them apart real clean, too, like a doctor. 2 whacks and he's through 'em. The queerest thing is, he bleeds them dry, washes them clean, and wraps them up like a butcher, all nice and neat in newspapers. It's like nothing I've ever seen, and I've seen plenty.
I'm sure it's only a matter of time before something breaks through.
Oh, you got that right. His kind always slips up. And when he does, bang! I'm gonna be right there on top of him.
Interesting to change a sour note by talking about murders, but there you go.
Hasn't the FBI been able to give you any relief with the torso investigation?
That's a good one, kid. Elliot Ness has saddled me with a junior AG man named Winslow, who doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. About all he's done is look pretty in his fancy suits for the photo boys and flapped his gums to the reporters about how he is gonna catch that killer.
Ah, Winslow, you say?
I met Special Agent Winslow in McGinney's bar. If he's the best the FBI has to offer you, well, you're in a whole lot of trouble.
What the hell was he doing in McGinty's bar? Oh, pressing the palms of the less fortunate for when he runs for mayor?
Well, he said he was working undercover, trying to track down a lead on the torso killer. He stood out like a sore thumb.
He's about as likely to find the killer in McGinty's as my grandmother is to win the Kentucky Derby.
Certainly a way to bring two people together. Talking down a higher, superior person. There we go. Feel a little bit better about that. But based on kind of what he said there and the information that we have, there's not a whole lot of other places that we can go, to be honest. This is kind of where it is on the first disc that you kind of get a little bit stuck. Because you have all of this information that's kind of plowed onto you at the very beginning, and now you have to make sense of most of it at this point, and figure out what you're supposed to do next.
A bunch of gibberish.
So, let's backpedal a little bit, and look at the connection between Mr. Pensky and Dr. Strauss, and really get a sense of what we're actually should be doing at this point. Looking for supposed German subversives now that we have the blacklist. This paper here, you should really take an actual screenshot, or at least take down the important scribbles information, the stuff on the left and the stuff on the bottom right. Because there's an example of how this specific code is trying to be cracked. Here. For instance, every number on the left here has to do with some sort of letter. A through Y, no Z at all. Then there's addition and subtraction that you have to do with a certain pattern of letters and numbers, and early on in the game, you really don't know what you're supposed to do with that, because you don't have all the necessary information. And even when you get the information, you don't know what to actually do with it at the same time. The last thing that Pensky was trying to do was check back with Professor Strauss, and he never did. So I guess that could be our next step in order to figure out what to do. But remember when I said last time about checking out the blacklist? Check it out a second time. Go through each of the names there just to see all the different things. For instance, the Schwab last name was the example on that sheet of paper in order to try and crack the code. Now, it's not just in Cleveland that all of these places, all of these people come from, but you can see that Henry Finster is also on this list for some reason. So let's think in terms of all of the different names that we have come across. Henry Finster, and just at the bottom here we have Dr. Karl Strauss as well. Every single person on this list has an adjacent case number tied to them. Now, this case number doesn't necessarily mean that it's going off of a actual folder. It actually has to do with that piece of paper and that cipher. So here's how it generally goes down. We have our three numbers here, which correspond to the numbers 2, 5, and 8. Now, we leave the 2 alone, we add 1 and subtract 1 to the next one, which in total gives us the numbers here. 2, 6, 7. Now, with the numbers, it's a different story. You have to add the pairs together, and then subtract that final pairing with the first number of the next pair. So 6 minus 2, which gives us 4. Followed by that, you have to, again, add the pair of numbers together. So 2 plus 2, that also equals 4. And subtract it with the first number of the third pair, which gives us a 0. Now, the last thing we have to do is, well, add the last two numbers together and we get a 4, which gives us a 6-digit code. Or in this case, we actually get what is considered a phone number. 267404. Let's give it a shot. Let's use the telephone. 267. By the way, for those of you who are not in the know, this is what's called a rotary phone. Way back before touchtone was invented, we had to do this. I used it a couple times myself.
Museum of Natural History, can I help you?
Yes, I'm Agent Jim Pearson with the COI. I was trying to reach a Professor Strauss.
Professor Strauss is not in. You're from Mr. Penske's office, aren't you?
Yes, sir, sort of. I wanted to...
Professor Strauss is away on business. I'll be sure to leave him a message.
Thanks. Sir?
Well, unfortunately, checking back with Professor Strauss is not going to be helpful because apparently he's not in. Now, remember this cipher because this isn't the first and only time we're actually going to be using it. We actually use it a couple times. And to be honest, I find it fairly clever, especially when you have to piece it together and figure out what you're supposed to be doing. Now, when it comes to the next part of what we're supposed to be doing, standing around in our office is not going to help us too much. Maybe Sullivan can help us.
Sorry to bother you, sir. Not at all, Mr. Pearson. Come right in.
Apparently not. The other problem with at least the early part of the games is that we are pretty much waiting around for something to happen, like this.
There was another message from the museum. Whatever had been going on between Walter Penske and Dr. Strauss seemed to be pretty important to both of them. Since I didn't have any more leads on my own investigation, and since Strauss's name did appear on the FBI's blacklist, along with Hank Finster's, I thought I might as well check into it.
At least this certainly helps us this way. And with this calls the end of Disc 1 of Black Dahlia. We have to change over to Disc 2 because we're going to a new area, meeting a new person, and hopefully finding the next steps of what Mr. Penske was trying to find out. So, I'll see you next time, everyone, at the Museum of Natural History.